some guy just tried to come in here and rob me, and I shot him. I need police over here right now.
Welcome to Boys in the Hood TV. Today we're going to be discussing the life of Papa Mo from the Van Ness Gangster Brims and how he would lose his life during an armed robbery. During Nice, Washington, aka Papa Mo was born on January 1st, 1987 in Los Angeles, California. Now Mo was raised in the deadly Van Ness Gangster Brims hood. Now the Van Ness Gangster Brims are a predominantly African-American street gang which formed in the late 70s. Now their hood sits between Western Avenue and Crenshaw. Now the Brims have always had a very violent reputation in the streets since the early 80s, with one of the most infamous murders taking place, which was done by Van Ness Gangster Brim, Ace Capone, who took the lives of multiple teens in the summer of 1984. Now Van Ness has many known rivals like the Rolling 60s, the Rolling 40s, the Rolling 30s, the Hoovers, and all neighborhood Crips. Now Mo would just be a kid growing up in the Van Ness hood when they went to war with the Rolling 60s in the early 90s.
The blood came out shooting us the crib, and they started shooting back at them. Next thing I know, they just started shooting. And I was standing in the yard, and the bullet came flying by my head, and I just hit the ground and started crawling.
Police say at the time of the shooting, an undercover team of officers was on the street, and they called for backup.
A little pursuits terminated over at 54th and Van Ness, where some other people were taken into custody. I think we have about 6 or 7 people in custody and probably a couple of guns at this point, but we haven't sorted it all out yet.
But being a kid in this area, it's only natural that Mo will gravitate to the block, hanging out with friends in the area. And it will only be a matter of time, once Mo hit high school, that he would jump off the porch. Now Mo would attend Dorsey High School, which was filled with rivals of VNG. But even with all this going on, Mo would still attend class, and he would ultimately graduate from high school. Now only a few years later, Mo would have some run-ins with the law, but in 2007, Mo would suffer a major loss. On August 27th, Mo, along with his homie, T Street, Destiny Williams, they would all be at his cousin's house, Kaya Nichols, on 57th Street. Now at around 10 p.m., as they all stood talking, a blue Tahoe would drive past multiple times. Eventually, that same Tahoe would park, and a Rolling 30s Crip named Tiny Yak will hop out the back seat. Tiny Yak would then walk up to the group and say, "What's up?" Immediately, Mo would ask him, was he from around here? And Tiny Yak would reply, "No." And that's when Mo knew something was up, so he told everybody to run. And the moment everybody started running, that's when Tiny Yak pulled out a strap and opened fire. He would let off 5 to 6 shots before running down the street and getting back into that Tahoe. When all the shooting finally stopped, Mo noticed that his homie, T Street, was laying on the ground bleeding. T Street had been shot 3 times, once in the back of the head, in his arm, and in his back. T Street would die from his injuries. Eventually, police would arrest Tiny Yak, along with other members of the Rolling 30 Crips, for this murder. Now, after the death of T Street, Mo would really turn up in the streets of LA. Only a few months later, he would be arrested on gun charges, but he would bond out. Now, with all these beats going on between VNG and rival hoods, Mo couldn't allow himself to be caught slipping. So even with that gun charge, he always kept a strap on him. But by doing this, in 2009, Mo would be arrested once again, being caught with a firearm. But this time, he would get no bond, and he would be sentenced to 16 months in prison. But eventually, Mo would hit the streets and get back active. But with no job, Mo would try to do what he had to do to make ends meet. And in 2011, Mo would link up with Lil Yellowstone from the Black P Stones. Now they would come up with a game plan to hit a lick on La Cienega Boulevard. Now this was a one-stop smoke shop, and this set on the outskirts in the Pico Robertson area in Los Angeles. At around 8 p.m., Mo and Lil Yellowstone would pull up outside the smoke shop, masked up. They would immediately hit the store with their guns drawn, demanding money from the store owner. But the store owner was able to pull out his gun also, and he would open fire. Mo would be hit multiple times in his torso as he collapsed to the ground. Lil Yellowstone would let off some shots, shooting back at the clerk. But in the midst of the shooting, a customer would be shot in the back of the head. Lil Yellowstone would be able to retreat and flee the scene.
And some guy just tried to come in here and rob me, and I shot him. I need police over here right now.
911 and paramedics would arrive and transport the customer and Papa Mo to the hospital. Sadly, around 9:51 p.m., Papa Mo would be pronounced dead. Now, due to the nature of the incident, the store owner was never charged with Mo's murder. But the police were now looking for Lil Yellowstone. And it will only be 3 days later, on November 23rd, when police would serve a warrant for Lil Yellowstone. But when they tried to arrest Yellowstone, he would take 3 people hostage inside a residence. But once Twice showed up, allegedly, Yellowstone would engage in a shootout with the officers, and he would shoot and injure 1 officer, but in return, Yellowstone would be shot and killed. I would like to thank everybody for tapping in, and I'll see y'all next time.